La Wesped, The Guest, is a TV show that we were talking yesterday, and today is more. Um, uh, Today is the actual breakdown of what happened in La Wesped. So basically, Lorenzo and Silvia, his wife, they just returned from Bogota, and after visiting their therapist, they just got interrupted by unannounced guest, and basically that guest turns out to be a friend of Sylvia's, and basically her car got stuck in the mud as it, heavily raining. She was forced to go to Sylvia's, but Lorenzo was surprised because Sylvia actually never mentioned any friends called Sylvia. And looking for help, Sylvia came to looking for help. Sonia came to Sylvia's and trying to escape her husband. She told that basically her abusive husband forced her to leave, and the only place she could have come to is this Sylvia's and Lorenzo's place. So basically, they let her stay one night, but after that, Sylvia and Sonia basically tried to, not letting this one night to become something bigger, because they have some past, and that past basically was a trip, and on that trip happened that Sylvia and Sonia basically came so close to the point that they basically, had some type of affair. But Sylvia's husband, Lorenzo, he has already cheated on Sylvia multiple times, and he has problems with controlling himself and stepping out of his imagination. And Sylvia, basically knowing his problems, letting this woman stay more than even one night, because she is already cooking for them breakfast, she is already communicating with Sylvia's husband Lorenzo, and she is kind of flirting. She has that playful personality, that behavior that making Lorenzo feel uncomfortable. But for Sylvia, it's not an issue, because the problem is just, not there for her, because she doesn't even seem Sonia as a love interest anymore. But she knows what happened between them on that trip. And Lorenzo, he has no idea that his wife Sylvia and Sonia, basically they met each other on that trip, and he basically trying to ask her to make Sonia out, to basically make her leave their house. And basically his problems were partly solved and partly addressed by his therapist, who accidentally died in the beginning of the show. In episode 1, we see him jumping off the roof and falling to his death, basically. But shortly after that, we saw basically Sonia, but the answer is still not clear if she did it or if he jumped and killed just himself. So basically that therapist told Lorenzo how to step out of his imagination, and every time when he feels that he cannot control himself due to temptation, he needs to basically hit his wrist with this rubber. And this technique basically works because this is exactly what he's doing once he feels like the situation with Sonia during this breakfast getting out of control. Not only because she is appearing like this, wearing less clothes than his wife Sylvia, which is kind of inappropriate, consider that she is a guest and she is already flirting and basically coming off as more, playful personality. And it seems like she has some motives by doing that. She seems to be motivated and she is enjoying this flirting and this communication between the three of them. And that gesture, like making a breakfast for them, was on purpose. She did that to make sure that they let her stay another night, or even 1 week or more. So basically, this is what about Lorenzo's situation. But Sylvia, she is actually more of a conservative, I would say, person when it comes to relationship and controlling yourself. She is basically managing to balance her life between her career, because she is a famous she is a well-known cellist, and basically her career is making her a working mom. So she has no like typical life, I would say, because she has less time to basically even do things like make a breakfast, which is why Sonia came off as that, person who can take care of this, because Sylvia seems to be so busy with her career and Sonia taking advantage of this. She knows exactly what she's doing. And by cooking this breakfast for this family, she is kind of securing her place and she is making sure that she stays. And basically they let her stay another week, and for them, basically that time that they were together before she arrived, before Sonia arrived, that time was kind of meant to be a repair of their marriage. They wanted to make it work again. And their new therapist, after previous one died, is talking about how they work on it and how they can improve it. Basically, they talking about Sonia's trip, that trip when she basically met Sonia first time. And that trip basically was meant to foster Sylvia to decide whether she wants this marriage keep going given her husband's infidelities, or if she wants to stop it. But on that trip basically happened that Sonia and Sylvia made out, and basically she understood that basically the trip changed her somehow and that she felt something. So she wanted to start things over, basically. She kind of got a huge refresh from that trip, and this is why she kept her marriage. And basically, this motive is not enough actually to keep your marriage, given that your husband cheating multiple times. Even this therapist was kind of confused if it's worth to keep going with this man and his, his habits, and particularly him not being able to control his desires, because basically the solution for them, specifically for Lorenzo, given that he is a man with a libido higher than average, this is what she said, the solution for someone like this is basically to face the reality and basically to live that lifestyle that corresponds to this reality, instead of feeling guilty for looking for that desire. You need to basically, live that lifestyle and just make sure that that lifestyle, aligns with what are you looking for, aligns with that reality that you're actually in. And with that being said, they decided that they can move on actually and make it work again. And Sylvia actually thinks that Lorenzo would not cheat again because he is changed now, and all those therapists basically made him change. But Sonia putting that doubt into Sylvia's head and trying to convince her that once Lorenzo becoming an attorney general, because now he is just a lawyer, once he got a new job, once his career getting on a new level and he is getting elected as an attorney general, their marriage even will get worse because she will have no time to spend with him. And she's kind of trying to put that doubt in Sylvia's head because she has some secret motives. By doing that, she just making Sylvia doubt if she really wants her husband getting a new job. And at the same time, Sonia appears as a mysterious woman who has some, who has some man working on a plan together with her. They are on that plan and they are planning something. And this plan basically including Sylvia and Lorenzo, of course. So basically they trying to make something with this family, and you will only understand the actual intention of this plan once you passed episode 10, not early, because the actual reason why they're doing that fully revealed after episode 5 or 6, and then you will gradually understand the intentions of this character Sonia, because she acts so spontaneously, but at the same time she is perfectly understanding what she's doing. It's not like she is just randomly appeared at their door. And they even basically invited her to Sylvia's father-in-law's birthday, and basically she arrived there and drawing everybody's attention again, because she every time she's doing that, because she wants to disturb that family, not only to be a part between Sylvia and Lorenzo, but she wants to be a bigger part of this family. So she went on that birthday basically to understand what people she is dealing with, and Lorenzo, suspecting that Sonia could have been a setup, and that setup could have been put by his wife Sylvia to test him and to test his faithfulness. So this is like, for him, seems to be suspicious, because he sees how playful and how flirtatious Sonia is, and at the same time his wife Sylvia remains the same. She is not like becoming more of a, thirsty woman. I would say she is just sticking to the same, lifestyle. And given that Sonia is more of a free-spirited woman, for Lorenzo it's just obviously that something is going on, because he feels that as a planned against him. But actually Sylvia was never supposed to be someone behind this, because it becomes obvious that Sonia came by herself and that she has some people behind her who is working with her on that plan. And basically she already knows that therapist of Sylvia and Lorenzo, their therapist died. She knows that, but she is kind of acting as if she's surprised by that news. And that therapist, basically, he was that person who suggested that Sylvia, she should go to that trip. And that trip was exactly where Sylvia and Sonia met. So basically, Sonia, she could have been behind that suggestion, because she knew that therapist. And basically, later on, you will find out that Sylvia and Sonia met on that trip, and after that, the therapist died, and Sonia was somehow connected to his death. So she basically could have got more information on Sylvia and her husband, because she was going to the same therapist. And this situation, when she went to the therapist, was actually the same moment when, before this therapist jumped off this balcony, and she was basically acting as if she is a victim of her abusive husband. The same stories she was telling to this therapist, and her acting was so believable. I'm not even sure which acting is more believable, the one that this actress is trying to do, or the one that this character is doing right now. Because every time she is trying to get emotional, it doesn't seem different from what she's doing as a, as an actress. But as this character, she's trying to force those emotions and to convince the therapist that she was actually suffering from that marriage, and she basically made him to jump off that balcony by putting something in his drink. And after that, she got this information on Sylvia and her husband, basically. So this is the exact moment when she found out all the information given, that their therapist is dead. She can now basically pursue this goal of hers and to go after this couple. So, and basically, Sylvia and Lorenzo, they have no idea what's going on. And their marriage still kind of in that stage of getting better, but it's not good yet. It's just they have no actual intimacy, and the only intimacy they have at the beginning of this TV show was interrupted by this unannounced guest, Sonia, and she knew the perfect time to come and to interrupt that. She was exactly doing that in perfect time, in perfect moment, in the right place at the right moment. And after she did that, basically, now your basically motive to stay with this family is to get trust from them and basically to make them, to make them basically believe your stories about your husband who was abusive and about everything that happened to her, and that she has no other place to go but this house. And she basically tried to convince Sylvia that they have something between them. And after that trip, basically, that Sylvia wasn't able to get Sonia out of her head. Basically, for Sylvia, that trip and what happened between Sonia and Sylvia was as a result of weakness. But Sonia, she doesn't feel like this. She thinks that basically was on purpose. That was because of their mutual interest. And she makes basically Sylvia to rethink everything about that trip, and basically she is making sure that the whole situation is under control. So she basically sets cameras everywhere, and this house basically displays now basically watched by this woman, and basically she is even going through some things belong to Sylvia and her husband. But every time she's almost caught, she perfectly acting like she is innocent. And this is basically her best skill, as she is able to immediately turn that innocent poor woman suffered from her marriage and to play this, helpful woman who can take care of Sylvia, and that small gesture, something like making coffee, something like talking about Sylvia's marriage, her problems, actually makes Sylvia believe that Sonia has no intentions to ruin this marriage, but to be a friend of Sylvia's. And she even helps her with a lot of things, like, for example, Sonia can easily basically convince everybody, including like some nurses at the hospital, to let Sylvia go and see some patients. She basically can convince everybody because of her acting and her basically, again, her being able to change immediately, making everybody believe what she's saying because she's acting perfectly. Not only this actress as this character, but that, the acting of that character itself that she is trying to, make work. This is actually working. And this is the only actually instrument she has. Not anything else. Her appearance basically and her emotions. The only things that can make anybody believe that she is telling the truth, basically. So after she installed the cameras, she basically started to look what everybody's doing, and she basically was surprised when Sylvia asked her to leave, and basically that was unexpected because Sonia thought that everything is under control, and after she helped Sylvia with multiple things, from little gestures to just really helping her, she's been told to leave this place because now Sylvia feels like they have no privacy. And with this presence of Sonia's, there is no place for them left, basically. But Sonia again turned that, character, and she played perfectly that victim card. She basically staged this conversation with one of her mans, and she basically made him talk as if she is that abusive husband. But he was like the guy from her team, and she basically prepared for this conversation. So she made Sylvia believe that she has the worst situation imaginable and that she has to stay here as long as possible. So she basically she was led to stay another week or something. But the more she stays, the longer she stays, the more suspicious she's getting, and more people see her as a suspicious person, and specifically this friend of Sylvia's. Once they went to jog, basically they ran into each other, and Sonia was doing some kind of strange conversation, and she was talking to somebody, but that friend of Sylvia's wasn't able to see who she was talking to. And basically, at that exact moment, she was actually talking to a man who helped her to install all the cameras, at Sylvia's place. but he just disappeared exactly right before this friend of Sylvia's came, and Sonia made it seem like she was talking to somebody on the phone and she was just having a call. And basically, this friend of Sylvia's, she is really into this situation and she's trying to understand what's going on with this new, friend of Sylvia's. And she sees that as pretty suspicious. And she is saying that a woman who is so affected by the divorce, because Sonia told that she basically divorced her husband and she left him because of his abusive personality. So basically she saying that someone who is just divorced cannot be so happy, and seems as if Sonia is just moved on so quickly after the divorce, making it even more suspicious. But Sonia, on the other hand, she is getting into even more situations and she is overhearing the conversation between Sylvia's husband Lorenzo and his daughter. And basically that situation was when they were discussing basically how one huge secret should be kept from anybody, but Sonia just overheard that secret. And the secret was about that Lorenzo's daughter basically ran over some guy and she put him into coma. And basically nobody knows that, but Sonia is already aware of that situation and she's trying to keep it as a secret from Lorenzo's wife Sylvia. And basically she agreed with Lorenzo that she would help Lorenzo with this situation. In return, Lorenzo will help her with Sonia's friend being locked up in a jail. And Lorenzo, as a lawyer, she has more power to basically, help her with this situation. And this is another time when she basically made up another story about her friend being locked up in a jail and in a huge trouble, while she has no actual situation like this, no friend in a prison. She came up with another story and she convinced Lorenzo that this is really happening. But on the other hand, Sylvia is still believing in every story that Sonia told her. But Lorenzo is more basically, he is more experienced. He is more experienced when it comes to trusting people because he is a lawyer. And his job basically taught him a lot of things, including using situations to your advantage. And Sonia is doing exactly that thing. She is using this situation to her advantage, but keeping her motives secret, keeping her motives as a secret, and doing every situation as something like, comes off naturally. This is what she's the best at. She's actually just making this TV show interesting because of the mystery aspect of this TV show basically held by this character, and she is basically pulling off that perfectly. So she is making everybody basically believe her, and at the same time she is trying to help them with their problems. But the biggest picture of her motives, the primary motive of this character, is actually revealed later on, and it seems as if she has something to do with this family, and specifically with Lorenzo's career as a lawyer. She seems to be after him and his wife, and her primary motives to ruin basically their careers and to ruin their reputations. Not necessarily their marriage, but to put their daughter in a bad spot by basically setting her up, because the situation when Lorenzo's daughter ran over someone was also staged and prepared, and basically that situation involved Sonia as well, because she made sure that that man that was run over, that he was there exactly at that moment that they were driving basically. So basically in this TV show you will see multiple storylines, but the main storyline, which is Sonia's storyline, her storyline is unraveling gradually throughout the season, and you will understand slightly what's going on by taking it slowly, and you will try to basically listen to every conversation. But given that this is like 20 episode season, it will not be easy for you to make it to the end, because at some point you will feel like this is not so entertaining, because not every episode is like really entertaining you, and a lot of conversations, a lot of situations when you can feel the vibe that you can get from some other TV shows. It's just missing due to prolonged season. Because for some TV shows to reveal the main plot, the main information about some characters, for some TV shows it takes 1 or 2 episodes, but for this TV show it takes more than like 5 or 6 or even 10 episodes. So be ready for this dragged out season, but if you make it to the end, I don't think you will regret, because if you made it, you would actually discover a lot of things about how people basically trying to face their characters, and especially character Lorenzo, and how he is trying to basically work on his personality, and how he is trying basically to step out of that imagination, because that actually making this situation with this guest Sonia even worse, because she is the type of woman that he is not capable of getting out of his head. Basically, once she is there, she is already basically aware of his problems with his controlling himself, and how he is not able to basically how he is not able to basically stop being that person. And once she appeared, she is basically even she is not even hiding that she is about to seduce him, and she is basically openly flirting with him. And this is exactly when this TV show becoming more interesting, because you don't exactly know what your motives are, and you don't exactly know what is behind that flirtatious, playful personality, because at some point it seems like she is just naturally doing things like this, going on a trip, seducing some married woman, and then coming back and reuniting with them, and then trying to basically seduce each of them. And at some point you just understand that this could have been both. This could be both. You're trying to basically break them up, or she has basically some past that involves Lorenzo and his wife, and she is retaliating on that, and she has some revenge. So this is exactly what it feels when I'm watching something like this, because I'm not sure completely how it will end, and I'm currently on episode 11. So I will come back when I'm done with this TV show completely. So I see you tomorrow with another part of the Guest La Wespet TV show. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.